You're back with The Nation, and our political commentator Colin James, who watched David Cunliffe give his first major speech as Labour leader this week, joins us. Hi Colin, thanks for joining us this morning.
Kia ora, Rachel.
Kia ora. So what did you make of, I guess, the way that Cunliffe delivered that speech in Wellington?
Well, I found it quite interesting. His usual declamatory style, so we're used to that. But I thought there was an additional energy there, and I couldn't quite define it. So I'm leaving it as something more. And the something more, certainly the CTU leadership was pretty chuffed. But if there was, what he communicated, I think, was a sniff of victory, and there hasn't been that in those sorts of circles now since the mid-2000s. So that was a wee bit different. And if he can communicate that something more to wider audiences, that might just be quite important in the run-up to the election. So it was a bit of a surprising speech to me. I thought I'd go along and just hear him plough through the old stuff, and it was a wee bit more than that.
OK, you've seen David Cunliffe on the programme too this morning, Colin. What did you make of him today? Well,
he's trying to be measured and at the same time stake out a quite different position from the National Party. And I thought he did that on the program. He talked about fiscal frameworks and so on.
Yes.
And saying that he wasn't going to rush at things. There were certain things that they decided they could do. He ran through a whole list with the CTU conference
yes.
of things, some of which we'll do in the first 100 days, some of which we'll have to do bit by bit, some of which we'll have to do according to the budgetary constraints. That was his general line. And I thought he maintained that in his interview with you. But that interview, I think, also raises the doubts or question marks around David Cunliffe, just how well he handles that sort of living room experience that most people have, rather than going along and hearing him in an audience. How he handles business audiences. And a couple of years ago, he just about one function I was at, he hit just about every wrong note he could have hit. Those sorts of issues, just how well he will do.
So you're suggesting he comes across quite well in a speech, and he's talking to, his caucus, but you think where he may battle a little bit is in an environment of a television interview, or how he comes across to people sitting at home watching him.
Yes, yes, but I thought he did quite well today. I thought he handled your questioning quite effectively, actually. Got his points across.
What did you make of his positioning on the Reserve Bank? He was a little bit non-committal, but then did suggest that he would revert to David Parker and look more towards that monetary committee to set the OCR as opposed to just the government.
I thought he's actually softened that policy a bit today. David Parker's been quite firm about the board, the committee that would set policy rather than the governor, and that they would use macro-prudential instruments. That's the loan-to-value ratio is one of those. There are 4 of them, as a substitute for or in addition to interest rate settings and so on. So I thought he softened that, just backed off a little bit from where David Parker's been, but no doubt they'll have to work that out between them.
The TPP is an interesting situation too, because quite apart from the negotiations offshore, when it comes back here and needs parliamentary approval, that appears to be what could be a, combative situation as well, and not just between the various parties, political parties, but within Labour, because is Labour a socialist party, a free trade party? We know Cunliffe's on the left, and certainly things that he was saying today suggested he has a few problems with the format of the TPP. Yeah,
well, Labour learnt to be a free trade party in the 80s and through the 90s, and Helen Clark was a bit doubtful about it, but with Tim Gross's advice at the time, she embraced the CEP, the Closer Economic Partnership with Singapore, which is a far-reaching agreement, as Tim Gross says. So, in essence, the Labor Party officially adopted free trade, but there's always been a bit of discomfort. And over the last couple of years in TPP, Claire Curran, particularly in the Labor Party, has been driving this intellectual property issue and its effect on small New Zealand IT and software companies, and that's been picked up. So the doubts are coming in, but they're really pragmatic doubts rather than principled doubts, I think. And I think I would take that as what David Cunliffe was saying earlier, that he's in favour in principle, and he'd have to be, because that's where he's certainly a free trader in principle. But there are some pragmatic and practical issues on which they'll have to take, they'll have to think about when they get the detail.
Yes. Now the financial services report
they've also, I should say, they've also got the Greens, who are anti-free trade, basically.
Yes, exactly. That's an interesting little relationship too there as well.
Yeah, and Winston Peters, who's anti-free trade. So.
Right. The financial services report was out this week. What did you make of its findings?
The Retirement Commissioner, and I've forgotten there's some long title it now has, put out a report and a whole raft of recommendations on superannuation, including about KiwiSaver, about tax, about indexation of the amount, about the age by implication of the proportions of the population. And then on Monday, the Financial Services Council has got a major conference in which it will address the issue both of age but also of tax. And that's embargoed until Monday, so I can't talk in detail about it. But essentially both the Retirement Commission and Financial Services Council are saying that the tax structure right now drives people into houses and drives them out of the sort of financial saving which would set them up for old age, but also would help set the economy up. So there's quite a substantive debate now emerging on superannuation. I think it's starting to get a bit of political traction inside the National Party, also inside the National Party, although it's got John Key blocking it at the moment.
All right, Colin James, thank you. Appreciate your time this morning.